From the campus of the Ignite Institute at the Roebling Innovation Center in Erlanger, Kentucky, Ignite Student Media presents the first annual Ignite Institute Political Forum. Hi, and welcome to the Ignite Institute Political Forum for 2020. I'm Darren Smith, the Social Studies for the Design College, and we are honored to be here with Senator John Schickel and Mr. Jim Fiorelli, who are candidates for the Senate District 11. Over the past few weeks, my students have been researching these candidates and researching issues important to them and writing questions. And the ones you're about to hear from today have written the best questions, so they were chosen to come here and be at this event. I'd like to thank the candidates for coming. If you'd like to take a minute to introduce yourselves, please.
Good afternoon. My name is John Schickel, and I serve as your state senator. I've been doing that for the last 12 years, and I'm running for another term. My priorities while I'm in the Senate is number one, to protect our freedom and liberty. Number two, to bring the needed resources to Boone County we need, such as infrastructure and education.
Fiorelli is my name. I've been a Boone County resident, or I have worked in Boone County for 31 out of the last 32 years. I'm the father of 10. One thing that I've learned as a first-time candidate is that introverts must become extroverts, and private people need to become public people. As a father of 10 kids, I can tell you that a lot of them are in math and science careers. I have a forensic scientist among my children, IT specialists, wind solar expert. As far as I'm concerned, I have 2 technical degrees, so I feel I'm among kindred spirits. I have a degree in chemical engineering, and I have an MS in statistics. Happy to be here. Grateful that Senator Schickel is here as well.
Hi, I'm Maria Doe, and this question's for Senator Schickel. In 2017, 4.5% of U.S. adults were a part of the LGBTQ+ community. Of those 4.5%, nearly 40% have experienced harassment or discrimination because they were LGBTQ+, according to Mental Health America. What is your opinion on the LGBTQ+ community, and what are your plans for the community?
Well, I was having a little bit of trouble hearing you, so, but I think I heard you. As far as harassment, or I'm against anyone being harassed. I believe everyone is equal. We should all have the same rights and the same opportunities. And I'm against any type of harassment. Anybody that is harassed physically should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And I believe that the Bill of Rights applies equally to all citizens of the United States. And we should lift all people up, no matter who they are, no matter what their orientation is, and everyone should be treated equal.
Thank you for your answer.
You're welcome.
First comment is that my campaign has been endorsed by CFAIR, which is an LGBT rights group. I can also tell you that my wife is a salon owner in Cincinnati, and for many years one of her clients was Jim Obergefell, whose Supreme Court case, Obergefell versus Hodges, opened the door for same-sex marriages. At present, there are 600,000 same-sex couples that have been married in the United States as a result of Obergefell versus Hodges. I support them. I can tell you that throughout again, having a lot of kids, they had gay friends. I've had gay youth over at my house many times. I have shared Thanksgiving dinner with gay people who happen to be gay. They are a vibrant and productive member of our community, and I do want to compliment Senator Schickel. He recently headed up a panel on conversion therapy, which is a draconian practice which attempts to convert those youth that are gay into youth that are straight. And there is a 40% suicide attempt rate for those that have participated in conversion therapy.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Skylar Price, and my question is for Mr. Fiorelli. Today, more than ever, fake news. Okay. Today, more than ever, fake news is popping up in our daily life. A survey from Statista.com explained that 49% of adults spread fake news without knowing it is fake. This survey reveals to us that adults have a hard time differentiating the difference between real and fake news, which may cause misconceptions that hurt the political system. Since the survey in 2019, Facebook and Twitter have made major steps toward this problem. They have started to add disclaimers or even take down posts. So how do you plan on stopping or informing the people of Kentucky on fake news?
Well, that's a pretty tough, not only a tough question, but a tough assignment. One thing that I can state clearly is that every time Mark Zuckerberg has been before the federal Senate committees, you see how little our federal senators know about news media, how little they know about Facebook. I remember one senator asking a question like, well, Mr. Zuckerberg, what is this instant messaging stuff anyway? Which I find to be appalling in this far into the 21st century. So to answer your question specifically, I wish I had a good answer, but I don't. And I'd like to hear what Senator Schickel has on that.
Could you repeat the question?
Yes. How do you plan on stopping or informing people on the spread of fake news that's sensational?
That is a very interesting question, as Jim said, and I would have a couple thoughts on it. It's one of the big discussions, I think, of our time, so I think it's a very timely question. First of all, I believe strongly in the role of the press, the free press. I think it's very important to our representative republic, and any attempts to regulate that, I am completely against. Everyone brings their own biases to their thoughts. Even a news person who is trying their very best, and I think most of them do try their very best not to be biased, we all see things through the prism of our past experiences. We can't help but do that. So when I hear the term fake news, and then I think of, let's say, just the different news channels who all have a little bit different slant. We all know who the big ones are. I don't think any of them purposely try to put out misleading information. I just think they put it out through the prism of their past experiences. Now, the good news is that today, more than ever, we have the ability to go directly to the sources. I remember when I first started in the state Senate, how people keep track of the way I voted then and how they keep track of it now has really changed a lot. Now people watch on their computer and they email me and text me as I'm making votes on the Senate floor, and they see firsthand what I say and what I do, and they make their own judgment on it many times as opposed to what a newspaper reporter says or a TV commentator says. And I think that's probably a good thing. And the other thing is that has changed it so much is the role of social media.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
My name is Aidan Bruner, and this question is for Senator Schickel. Throughout the United States, the Black Lives Matter movement has affected people in many positive, but sadly, many negative ways. There are peaceful protesters, there are rioters, and there are those who take advantage of the protests for their own good. It has been a large turning point for racial equality, and yet division in the U.S. has increased dramatically since the start of the riots. Portland is a fine example. All of these negatives cause people not only to lose faith in the movement, but to turn on each other due to their own personal opinions. According to the Pew Research Center, an estimated 67% of adults in the U.S. agreed with and at least somewhat supported the BLM movement, with 38% strongly supporting it. But since riots and looting began, support has drastically decreased to 55% somewhat supportive and 27% fully supportive. What is your opinion on this issue, and how do you think it can be resolved where the nation is at peace?
Thank you for a great question. Again, I was having a little bit of trouble hearing, so I'd like to encourage everybody really to speak up. Don't be bashful when you ask your questions. Well, as you may or may not know, I'm a retired policeman. Until I was in the Senate, elected to the Senate, I was a jail administrator, U.S. Marshal, local policeman. I served as a federal agent. I've served as a state policeman. I've served as a city policeman. So I really have a lot of experience in that area. And I've also, in recent years, become very interested in civil rights and the civil liberties. In fact, it's been a bit of a passion of mine when I'm in the state Senate, because I've seen firsthand government power abused. But your question, again, is very timely and I think is somewhat complicated. The quest for racial equality in this country goes on, and we have a long history of inequality going back to the founding, and hopefully we make progress as we go on, as the years pass by. But as you say, some of the recent civil disorder, not the peaceful protest, I think has really made it kind of cast a negative light on that. And as a police officer, I stand with the police as far as law and order. We have to have we have to respect the rule of law. We have to respect people's property. And I think rioters and looters should be prosecuted to the very fullest extent of the law. But peaceful protesters should always be protected.
Thank you.
I attended a forum on the Capitol grounds about 3 months ago, and there were a number of speakers, and the topic was Black Lives Matter. And one thing that was pointed out there was that some folks use as an excuse, well, all lives matter, which is true. However, Asian lives have to matter. LGBTQ lives have to matter. The lives of the elderly have to matter. Brown lives have to matter. Everybody's life has to matter, including Black Lives Matter, because we're such a fragmented society. The United States of America is made up of hundreds, if not thousands, of individual components. And until all the lives of the individual components matter, only then, and Black lives being among them, only then will all lives matter. I also feel that protests and riot and looting are mutually exclusive events. I've participated in protests. I've participated in simply, call it in support of LGBT rights. I've participated in activities for the gay community. And I have to say that most often it is out-of-state entities that come in and stir the pot. In the case of Kenosha, Kenosha, Wisconsin, Kyle Rittenhouse was from Illinois. He came up from Illinois to stir the pot and ended up killing 2 people and wounding another one. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, too.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sheridan Dirksen, and My question is addressed to Mr. Fiorelli. In the nation, Kentucky is ranked 33rd for wage gap differences between men and women. As of 2018, the average earnings for women in Kentucky was about $37,379, while the average earnings for men in Kentucky was about $47,370, putting them around a $10,000 difference. The national figure for women's earnings is 82 cents for every dollar men earn. In the Commonwealth of Kentucky, women earn 79 cents for every dollar earned by men. The numbers then drop significantly for minority women. Black women in Kentucky earn about 67 cents for every dollar earned by white men, and for Latina women in Kentucky, it's 54 cents for every dollar earned by white men. While some of our statistics are higher than the national average, there's always room for improvement. How would you go about narrowing the wage gap and helping to strengthen equal pay laws?
Well, that's a fantastic question, and being the father of 10 and 7 of them are girls, I would never want to have anyone say that my sons are worth $1 and my girls are worth 79 cents, or the numbers that you provided. If you take a look at the union structure, for example, in spite of the fact that unions have come a long way in male versus female pay equity, the unions still are paying women 94 to 96 cents on the dollar as compared to men. If legislation can be presented, I would support that as far as pay equity is concerned. Another issue is the minimum wage, and how minimum wage, not only in Kentucky, but in about 29 other states, has been maintained since, I think, 2008 at $7.25 an hour. That is not a living wage, and in spite of the fact that the fight for 15 is a good idea for everyone, including women, I am more in favor of attracting those jobs to Kentucky that pay $25 an hour, $40 an hour, something like that. So I think the solution is attracting those employers, those potential employers that in fact are known to pay on an equitable basis, and a fight to raise the minimum wage in Kentucky to something that's far more reasonable than $7.25.
Thank you.
Well, I agree with Jim that we should try to attract good-paying jobs to this area or to the state, and even more so to this area. And one thing I've done while I was in the state Senate, I've really been a leader on that, especially as my role as chairman of the State Licensing and Occupation Committee, which has jurisdiction over all alcohol issues in the state. And we've been able to do things like bring in, change our laws the last 8 years to make that industry boom, our bourbon industry. It's one of our signature industries. That and horse racing are one of the reasons why tourists come to Kentucky. And the average wage in that industry is almost $60,000 a year. There are no low-wage jobs in that industry. So that's the kind of industry which I've been working on, trying to create for Kentucky. But generally, I'm against the government being involved in setting wages.
May I have the 30 seconds to add to that? You have to bear in mind that Kentucky is a right-to-work state, and that was something that Senator Schickel supported. Kentucky also has denied prevailing wage to union workers who are working on government projects and any project of $250,000 or more. And prevailing wage is paying someone a fair wage, and Senator Schickel voted against the prevailing wage. So bear in mind that Senator Schickel may say that he supports wages, but that's not been the case for our union employees.
The report from the Center on Budget and Policy priorities show that while many with deep K through 20 funding cuts since the recession boosted funding last year, Kentucky did not. Since the recession, states have shifted from state to local funding for education between 2008 and 2016. State funding nationally declined by 166% per student, while local funding grew by 161. Richard Enns from the Bluegrass Institute says that several factors may make it difficult to accurately compare school funding across states, but he acknowledges if you consider a general total of education spending, Kentucky ranks 40th among all states. So how would you handle the funding for students' education?
I, again, was having a little trouble hearing you. I apologize, yeah. School funding is something you hear a lot about, and I'm glad you brought it up because there's been a lot of misinformation put out there about school funding. This last budget session, between the retirement and school funding and the SEEK formula, we approved $6.2 billion. That's what the budget was. That is a record. That's the most money that's ever been spent in the history of Kentucky. Our total budget's around $12 billion, so it's half of that. So I don't subscribe to the fact that school funding has been cut. In fact, we're spending a record amount of money on school funding, as we should, because school funding is a constitutional responsibility. A lot of people, some of my conservative friends, when they talk about school funding, they don't want to admit that it is a constitutional responsibility, and the Constitution is very clear. It's the job of the state to fund schools, and I think that's where we're falling short, because here in Boone County, for instance, actually the most of that burden is on the local community, and that's not right. That's not the way it was set up. The way it was set up was that the state should be funding education. So I've been working with members in the House to try to reformulate what they call that SEEK formula so that growth schools like Boone County and Kenton County won't be penalized so much.
Thank you.
Well, let me start with higher education. Back in 2008, the college student was required to pay 35% of the college expenses, and 65% was covered elsewhere, scholarships and the like. By 2010, it was 50-50. Right now, the college student has to pay 65% of the college expenses, and the 35% is found elsewhere. As far as Kentucky is concerned, Kentucky teachers haven't had money for textbooks for years. I recently talked to a young woman who was a teacher. She was also a waitress. She said she was a Kenton County school teacher, and the copyright on her social studies book was 2006. Now, how many social changes have taken place since 2006? How about your other textbooks? Well, my math book doesn't have a spine on it. Books have been around for a dozen years. We as teachers must go to the internet every night after school, spend 45 minutes so we can find appropriate teaching materials so that we can teach our kids the next day. Add to that the fact that the state has cut professional development for teachers. Well, every professional wants to have professional development. You want to have continuing education units, credits rather. If you are passionate about your profession, you want to continue to grow in your profession. But there is no state funding for teacher development in the budget. Transportation costs have been cut statewide too to get kids to school. Very problematic, especially in rural communities. You know, here in Boone County, we've got a patch of earth that's 20 miles by 40 miles. In other counties, it's huge, and the number of students, all of the students in those cases have to take buses to get to school. So Another issue is, although Senator Schickel is correct saying we probably are allocating more funds now than we have in years past, in constant dollars, the number has declined. So we really aren't spending the same amount of money as we were 10 years ago. Sorry for going over time.
Thank you.
Can I follow up, please? Thank you. First of all, we are spending records amount, even with adjustment for inflation. But Jim's exactly right about the textbooks, and that is why I introduced legislation to give the local school boards the flexibility on how they spend their funds. We at the state don't need to be dictating to our local elected school boards on how they need to be spending their fund, whether it's on textbooks or it's on this or that. That's what we elect the school board for. That's what we hire a superintendent for. So I've been a champion of taking the money, of allowing the local school boards and the local superintendent to make those kind of decisions about textbooks and other things so there's more flexibility.
I am Adley Wortman. Mr. Fiorelli, in 2019, Black Jewel Mining Company, along with 8 other coal companies, declared bankruptcy. This has left well over 100 Kentucky mining permits untransferred. The permits make sure the environment and the health of the people are protected. The environmental violations continue to grow. Families who live within the area of the mine could experience environmental hazards such as landslides, water hazards, and more. Regarding this situation and other environmental issues, what can you do to protect the citizens and taxpayers?
Well, first of all, the life expectancy of a coal miner is 57 years. If Senator Schickel and I were coal miners, we would have been dead a long time ago. 29% of coal leases today are held by companies that are either bankrupt or have filed for bankruptcy. The issue of environmental is huge. Coal ash contains arsenic, lead. There was a coal ash spill in North Carolina in the Dan River. I think it was 2016. It killed everything for the next 70 miles downstream. So we're looking on, and when companies go bankrupt, they are passing along their environmental problems to the person. If anybody buys the mine afterwards, they assume the liability for the environmental damage. Also, President Trump came out and said, I'm going to save big, beautiful coal, but during his watch, 65 coal-fired power plants have shut down, and there's 30 more on the agenda on the blocks for retirement. One thing that was done by Senator McConnell is that he sponsored what's called the Reclaim Act, which will permit coal communities to reuse the land and reclaim the land for future purposes. Those monies will be needed moving forward. I will turn the time over to Senator Schickel now.
Thank you. Jim is right that we definitely need to look at transitioning coal with environmental needs. But I think it's important to realize that water and air are cleaner now in Kentucky than they've ever been in our history. I know that a lot of the coal mines, the old coal mines have been transferred, and a lot of them are being used now for tourism, things like elk hunting and hiking and camping, and they're really beautiful. I've been to several of them and participated in some of those activities, and they're really beautiful. As far as the industry itself, which was the first part of your question, we need to do everything we can to protect Kentucky's coal industry, and I think Senator Mitch McConnell has done a great job doing that. But we also have to realize as time changes, energy needs change. So I think there's several moving parts to that question.
Thank you.
Hello, this question
Hello.
is for Senator Schickel. On August 13th, 2020, according to the Healthcare Value Hub and the Thrive Kentucky campaign, 77% of Kentuckians were worried about affording health care. 71% of Kentuckians also strongly agreed that the healthcare system needs to change, and 69% pointed out that healthcare should be a priority issue the government should focus on. How will you assure healthcare is maintained so everyone can receive affordable health care? Do you believe everyone should have equal health care insurance?
Well, it's a great question, and I was talking to my brother on the phone the other night. I think my opponent and myself were approximately the same age, and it's funny as you get older how you think more about it, and you want to make. I remember I've always been blessed over the years and had jobs with good health insurance, but as you get older, you realize that how much more vulnerable you are, and it takes up a lot more of your time making sure that it's in order. I think that the healthcare question in a lot of ways is a little bit similar to the coal mining question, is that things are changing very quickly. And we need to adapt to modern technology, use modern technology. We need to make sure that we are using competitive pricing and that the healthcare system is in the free market system where you have competitive pricing, because one of the things about healthcare is that you don't really know what you're paying for, and you don't know what your insurance company is paying. And it used to be that when you had a surgery or something like that, you'd go to a hospital and you'd stay for several days. Now you go and you probably won't stay one night. And most of your health care information is right here on this telephone, and you can get to it yourself. So I think there's a temptation with healthcare to try to live in the past and do the things that we've done in the past. But I think we need to look to the future. I think it's important that we do ensure that everyone has good health care. We're fortunate in Northern Kentucky because we have Representative Kim Mosier, who's a registered nurse and is chairman of the Health and Welfare Committee in the House. And I try to work closely with her and St. Elizabeth Hospital and those stakeholders to make sure that we are planning for the future as far as health care is concerned.
Thank you.
So as far as my own personal experience is concerned, I spent many a time in an emergency room with a child who broke a collarbone or was dehydrated or had chest congestion that didn't clear up. And I often wondered while I was waiting my turn, what does a father do with a child that doesn't have health care? Does he watch his child suffer? Does the mother cry over the matter? Do they worry about whether or not they'll be able to put food on the table because there's an impending medical bill? So I do agree with the free market concept of keeping health care under control. I believe that hospitals should have posted rates, and if I need some sort of surgery and if the surgery is specific enough, that I can look to see what various hospitals charge for the problem that I have. I believe in the expansion of the role of the nurse practitioner. Nurse practitioners typically have a charge that are much less than a medical doctor. President Trump has talked about opening the doors for foreign drugs. That is a possibility, but the bottom line there is that foreign drug producers aren't vetted to the extent that our domestic drug producers are. So that could be very problematic. So my thought is aligned with Governor Beshear's. Let's increase access to Connect, and we'll do that by by having a marketing program which will make access to Connect easier and put people in place to allow them to take advantage of Connect without a lot of difficulty.
Thank you.
Follow up. I've been involved in two areas personally with this in the state Senate as chairman of the Licensing, Occupation, and Administrative Regulation Committee. I've learned a lot. And one of them is nurse practitioners, which Jim mentioned. I brokered the deal between the doctors and the Kentucky Medical Association and the nurse practitioners for the current nurse practitioner law we have today. We spent all summer doing it. It was very contentious, but we got it done. And because we got it done, more people have access to health care in Kentucky at a lower cost. The other thing that I was involved with was midwives, okay? We have a lot of folks, you'd be surprised right here in Boone County, who want to have their babies at home. They don't want to have them in the hospital, and they want to use a midwife. They don't want to use a doctor. And we had laws in Kentucky that prohibited that. That is no longer the case. The doctors and the midwives sat down, and we worked out a deal where both those groups could work together, and if there was an emergency, they would go to the hospital. But midwives and families, if they wanted to, could have their children at home at much less cost.
All right, thank you. And that concludes our debate for the 11th Senate District in Kentucky. I want to sincerely thank Senator Schickel and Mr. Fiorelli for joining us, and thank the students for their good work and good questions. And I will just conclude by reminding everyone that voting has started. So you can vote already in person, by mail. Yeah. And so don't forget to vote November 3rd.
Can we have just one little last comment?
Sure.
I'm sure he'll want to too. I want to thank the Ignite Academy for doing this. You know, one thing, and this is Jim's first campaign, but I've been through a lot of them, and this is a very different campaign because by now normally we had been to the fair and the senior citizens picnic and all these functions where we would have gotten out and met people, seen people, met each other, and we really haven't got a chance to do that this time. So it's really great to have a forum like this where we can get together and actually talk with each other and talk with the public. So thank you.
I concur. There are many things that other candidates who have run for office before have said in terms of door knocking, which is not appropriate at this point, of gatherings where you can have a fundraiser and get people together, other activities. It is very different. Having never done this before, it's not nearly as different for me as it is for Senator Schickel. So thank you.
Well, we appreciate you both saying that, and we'll look forward to having you back at the second annual Ignite Institute Political Forum.
Very good.
Thank you.
you.